In class, today we're going to talk about works cited pages and text citations and how to avoid plagiarizing or cheating on your papers. Nothing's worse than being called in by your teacher after they suspect you of plagiarism. Some things we need to look at are how to set up the works cited page, what needs to go into our in-text citations, and just generally, how do we not cheat. So first things first, we have here, if you look, all of our citations from our research. I just took the basic citations from Purdue Wise Owl that they'd already made as a sample, and I used that. That's a fantastic site. If you haven't checked it out, they have a lot of good resources there for writing MLA, APA, and a lot of writing tips. All right, first things first, what we want to do is we want to have this all double spaced. So let's make sure it's double spaced like the rest of our paper. There's not going to be any other space between them other than the double spacing. Double. All right, it's looking like not everything is Times New Roman. I'm going to fix that real quick. Okay. And like any other title, this is going to be put to the middle of the paper, centered, and nothing else. No bold, no italics, no underline. It doesn't say bibliography. It doesn't say list of resources. It says works cited, and that's it. Let's see. The next thing we have to do is what's called hanging indent. If you look at this, it looks kind of junky, like a list of words that don't mean anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix this with what we call hanging indent. So you're going to highlight this whole thing. And in Word, this is actually a lot easier than it is here. Not the highlighting, but the hanging indent. There's a little button you can press for that. But all you do is you take this little arrow and you move it over to about here. All right, there we go. And then you move this back to, hold on, this little, I guess, rectangle over here. And that creates a hanging indent. What it does is the first line is not indented, and the second line and lines afterwards are. And that's just the MLA style. There's no real explanation for that other than that. So if you do this, you have your works cited. Your teacher or professor can look at this and say, this is where they got their information, and that's great. I wanted to look a little bit further at citations and what it looks like in your paper. So you have your works cited page, that's great. But every time you use any of this information, you've got to attribute it. What that means is you've got to have either something that says, for instance, if we used Dean, Cornelia Dean's executive on a mission, whatever, I can say something like, Miss Dean in her paper says blah, 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 blah. And that is attributing it. Another thing we could do is in-text citations, which is quicker and a little bit better. So let's do that. We're going to use Dean because we already talked about her. And I think we'll do a direct quote, paraphrase, and then one other little trick. So I could say this is a quote and make sure that if it is a quote, you don't change anything they say, and also make sure that you put in quotation marks. And then I'd put Dean. If there's a page number, you put the page number. If there's not, you don't. If you can't find the person's last name, you can just put the title of the article. Really, it's whatever comes first on the line. So for instance, if it's Revkin and that's not there, we'd go Quinn on climate change. If it's a paraphrase, it works kind of similarly. You put the period on the outside of that. You could say this is a paraphrase. And there you go. Now, the one other trick I want to tell you is, let's say that we ended up having this as part of our paragraph. What we could do is instead of citing both of them, you just cite at the end of the paragraph, and that attributes it to the whole, that whole paragraph was based on that person's work. So if I got the quote from Dean, I got the paraphrase from Dean, I can put it at the end of the paragraph. Normally, though, if you're going to quote it, you probably should put it after the quote. If it's mostly paraphrasing, it's a little bit different. But again, it's something you can do. So that's it. That's how to do a works cited page. That's how to do your in-text citations. Anytime you use an idea or a quote that's not your own, words that are not your own at all, you make sure to do that. Well, I hope this was helpful. I'm going to try to have a few links about maybe using EasyBib to do this or things like that in the video description. And if you have any questions, let me know.